America's most dangerous serial killers didn't just escape prison once, but twice. What if his freedom led to some of his most brutal murders? And what if the system designed to stop him failed, again and again? This is the story of how Ted Bundy escaped prison and how people paid the price. By the mid-1970s, Ted Bundy was already a name whispered in fear across the United States. Young women were disappearing, bodies were being found, and one man stood at the center of it all. Ted Bundy, law student, political volunteer, charming stranger, and now, prisoner, or so everyone thought. In 1976, Ted Bundy was arrested in Utah for kidnapping Carol Duranch, one of the few women who survived an encounter with him. Her testimony was powerful, her identification was confident. Bundy was convicted. But something about Ted Bundy unsettled authorities. He didn't behave like other inmates. He studied the law. He argued his own case. He convinced people he was smarter than the system holding him. And slowly, the system began to believe him. In 1977, Bundy was transported to Colorado to stand trial for murder. Against all logic, he was allowed to act as his own attorney. That decision would change everything. During a pretrial hearing at the Pitkin County Courthouse, Bundy requested access to the law library. No handcuffs. Minimal supervision. What happened next stunned the nation. Ted Bundy walked toward an open window, paused, and leapt. He jumped from the second floor, crashing into the snow-covered ground below, and ran. For 6 days, Ted Bundy was free, a serial killer on the loose. Most people believe Bundy escaped on impulse, but evidence suggests otherwise. Investigators later discovered Bundy had studied the courthouse layout, monitored guard routines, and rehearsed the escape mentally. This wasn't desperation, it was planning. Bundy was recaptured, but something had changed. He now knew escape was possible, and next time, he wouldn't rush. Back in jail, Bundy began losing weight. Intentionally, he starved himself, slipping below his recorded weight. Late one night, he squeezed through a hole in the ceiling of his cell, crawled through the crawl space, dropped into the jailer's apartment, empty, put on civilian clothes, and walked out the front door. No alarms, no resistance. Ted Bundy was free again. This time, for good. Bundy fled to Florida. There he reinvented himself under a new name. He blended in. But inside him, something darker was building. Psychologists believe Bundy's time in prison intensified his violent urges. The escapes weren't victories. They were accelerants. He had beaten the system, and now he was angrier than ever. On January 15, 1978, Ted Bundy entered the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University. What happened inside remains one of the most horrifying moments in true crime history. In less than 15 minutes, Bundy brutally attacked multiple women, killing 2 and severely injuring others. There was no planning, no charm, no manipulation, only rage. Bundy had changed. Just weeks later, another young woman vanished. Kimberly Leach, 12 years old. Bundy abducted her in broad daylight. Her murder marked a disturbing escalation, one that shocked even seasoned investigators. The man who once pretended to be harmless had become reckless, desperate, unstoppable. Florida authorities launched one of the largest manhunts in state history. Witnesses described a man named Ted, a Volkswagen Beetle, a familiar smile. This time, the puzzle pieces fit together quickly. Ted Bundy was arrested once more, and this time, there would be no escape, or so they believed. How did this happen? How did a convicted serial killer escape custody? Twice? How many lives could have been saved if the system hadn't failed? And perhaps most disturbing of all, did Ted Bundy plan even more violence after Florida? Violence he never had the chance to commit? When Ted Bundy was finally recaptured in Florida, many believed the nightmare was over. The escaped killer had been stopped, the danger contained. Justice at last was closing in. But what investigators were about to uncover would reveal something far more disturbing, because Ted Bundy wasn't just a fugitive who snapped. He was a man who had changed, and Florida would pay the price. Before his escapes, Bundy relied on charm, a fake injury, a polite smile, a request for help. But after prison, that mask was gone. Witnesses in Florida would later say Bundy looked different. His eyes were darker, his behavior more erratic. He no longer pretended to be harmless. Psychologists believe prison and escape stripped away Bundy's need for control through deception. Now he acted on impulse, and impulse made him more dangerous than ever. On January 15, 1978, just weeks after his second escape, Ted Bundy entered the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University. What followed was not a calculated hunt. It was an explosion of violence. Bundy attacked 4 women in under 15 minutes. 2 were murdered. 2 were left with life-altering injuries. The brutality shocked even veteran detectives. This wasn't the methodical killer from the past. This was rage. What most people don't realize is this: Bundy didn't plan the Chi Omega attack days in advance. Evidence suggests he was wandering campus that night, driven by overwhelming urges, choosing targets at random. This was a terrifying shift. It meant Bundy was no longer predictable, and that made stopping him far more difficult. Florida State University fell into panic. Parents pulled students from campus. Doors were barricaded. Police flooded the area. Yet Bundy remained free, and worse, he hadn't finished. Just weeks later, 12-year-old Kimberly Leach vanished from her school. Witnesses saw a man pretending to be a police officer lead her away. That man was Ted Bundy. This abduction marked a line Bundy had never crossed before. Children were no longer off limits. Investigators now believe Bundy was spiraling, losing control at a rapid pace. Experts later concluded that Bundy's escapes triggered a psychological collapse. He had beaten the system twice, outsmarted guards, humiliated courts. But instead of satisfaction, he felt emptiness. The killings escalated because Bundy was chasing a feeling that no longer came, and each act grew more reckless. Florida authorities finally caught a break. Witnesses remembered a tan Volkswagen Beetle, a man named Ted, a familiar face lingering too long. On February 15, 1978, Ted Bundy was arrested for kidnapping Carol Duranch again. But this time, Florida had him. Or so they thought. Bundy's trial for the Chi Omega murders became one of the first nationally televised murder trials in U.S. history. Millions watched, and Ted Bundy loved it. He smiled at cameras, cross-examined witnesses, flirted with the audience. But behind the performance, prosecutors were building a case that would end his freedom forever. For the first time, escape was no longer an option. Yet even now, Bundy searched for cracks in the system. Legal loopholes, appeals, delays. He believed, right up until the verdict, that he could talk his way out. That belief would cost him everything, because Florida wasn't Utah, and Florida wasn't Colorado. Florida wanted blood. Ted Bundy was found guilty, sentenced to death. The man who escaped prison twice now sat on death row. But even then, Ted Bundy wasn't done controlling the story. As Bundy awaited execution, investigators began to ask a haunting question. Were the murders in Florida his final crimes? Or were they only the ones we know about? Because Bundy had been free for weeks, and some disappearances during that time were never fully explained. For weeks after Ted Bundy's final arrest in Florida, investigators believed they had accounted for his crimes. The Chi Omega murders, the attack survivors, the abduction and murder of Kimberly Leach. It was horrific, but it felt contained, until they looked closer. Because when detectives retraced Bundy's movements during his time on the run, something disturbing became clear. There were gaps, days when Bundy was free, unseen, unaccounted for. And during those days, people vanished. After his second escape from jail in Colorado, Bundy traveled across multiple states before reaching Florida. He slept in the stolen cars, stayed in cheap motels, moved constantly. But what chilled investigators was how little they truly knew about that journey. No surveillance footage, no reliable witnesses, no complete timeline, just a moving shadow. And wherever that shadow passed, missing persons reports quietly accumulated. Years later, cold case investigators began cross-referencing unsolved disappearances with Bundy's known travel routes. The results were unsettling. Young women, college towns, late 1977 to early 1978. No bodies recovered, no suspects identified, but the patterns matched Ted Bundy almost perfectly. Investigators couldn't prove it, but they couldn't ignore it either. What most people don't realize is this: Ted Bundy was not careful during this time. Witnesses later recalled a man matching his description acting erratically, angry, impatient, no longer hiding behind charm. This suggested something terrifying. Bundy wasn't just killing again, he was losing control. And that loss of control often leads to more victims, not fewer. At the time, law enforcement agencies didn't share information the way they do today. Jurisdictions were isolated, records were physical, communication was slow. Bundy exploited that weakness. He moved faster than the system could react, and by the time he was arrested in Florida, it may have already been too late. Years after Bundy's execution, one investigator broke his silence. He admitted that Bundy had hinted, quietly, about additional victims during a private conversation on death row. No names, no locations, just a sentence. There were others you'll never find. At the time, it was dismissed as manipulation. Now it sounds like a confession. Criminal profilers later concluded that Bundy's final spree wasn't random. It was accelerated. When Bundy realized his freedom wouldn't last, his behavior shifted. The violence intensified. The selection became reckless. This is often seen in serial killers nearing capture, what experts call a terminal escalation. Bundy wasn't winding down, he was burning out. And that suggests the true number of his victims during his escape may never be known. When Ted Bundy was executed, many believed the truth would finally surface. But it didn't. Instead, his death froze countless questions in time. No more confessions, no clarifications, no answers for families who still waited. Bundy took his secrets with him, and in doing so, denied closure to people who had already lost everything. Ted Bundy escaped prison not once, but twice. Those failures weren't just procedural mistakes. They had consequences. Real people, real lives, real families shattered. And the most painful truth may be this: some victims will never even be known. Ted Bundy is often remembered as a monster, but monsters don't operate alone. They exploit systems. They take advantage of complacency. They slip through cracks we don't want to admit exist. Bundy escaped because people underestimated him. And because of that, others paid the price. Ted Bundy didn't just escape prison, he escaped accountability. Not for all his crimes, but for enough of them to haunt us forever. And somewhere, there are names we'll never hear, stories never told, lives reduced to unanswered questions. That is his true legacy. This isn't just about Ted Bundy. It's about remembering those who never got justice. Because silence protects killers, not victims. And forgetting is the final crime. If this story made you stop and think, if you believe every victim deserves to be remembered, subscribe to Echoes of Crime. Like this video to keep these stories alive. Comment below, do you believe there are still victims we don't know about? Because the truth doesn't fade, it echoes.